Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So we left off last class in the verse where the poet stated, وقي الأمير هوى العيون فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه, and the fact that it can be fatal. And so once this aspect of love, in terms of it being very destructive, was exacerbated, the poet, rightfully so, prayed that this type of result did not reach the Amir. He stated, وقي الأمير هوى العيون فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه. So seeking the protection for the Amir from any kind of affliction, particularly from the passion of love. And elaborating further, stating that love is beyond the reach of conventional means of resolution. So even though the Amir is known for his generosity and his batsh, his ability to conquer his enemy, the poet is stating that this type of affliction, or this type of test, this type of test is beyond the Amir's capacity to overcome. And in the next verse he explains why, where he says, يستأثر البطل الكمي بنظرة ويحول بين فؤاده وعزائه. And so the first word being يستأثر, meaning to captivate or to take control. In this case here, it means to capture one's heart. A possible synonym includes سيطرة, which is to take control. And this is used in sort of an emotional or physical sense. We also have the word يهيمن, which implies authority or overseeing. يستأثر البطل الكمي. And so the author uses the word al-batal and al-kami, and he's speaking in reference to al-amir. So he's conferring that the amir is al-batal al-kami. Al-batal is a brave person whose weaknesses are concealed. In this case here, al-kami is the weaknesses being concealed, or anything being concealed in the form of al-kami. But what it's meant in this particular verse is his weaknesses, and these weaknesses are concealed either because of the armor that the Amir would wear, because he is such a fierce warrior. So the armor and the weapons, or his skills in fighting. So he's saying that يستأثر البصر الكمي بنظرة. النظرة is with one glance. ويحول بين فؤاده وعزائه. And the word يحول is to intervene or to come in between. A possible synonym includes يفصل, which is creating a division, which is not the intent here. What he's stating is that with مجرد النظرة, with only one glance, what love can do is love can come between بين فؤاده وعزائه. And we stated previously that the word fu'ad comes from a tafa'ud, which is that heart that is the emotional heart. So it's not the heart that uses logic and it's not the thinking heart exclusively, but this fu'ad is the heart that is the emotional heart. So he's saying that this love comes between fu'adihi wa azaihi. Aza is his resolve, determination to do a particular thing. So in addition to what was stated in the previous verse where he says وقي الأمير هوى العيون فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه. So he making this dua to protect the Emir from hawa al-uyun. He expounds a little bit in that particular verse about what this hawa al-uyun, he states فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه. So he, in general, he just says that this hawa al-uyun, this affliction of passion love that comes just by one glance. So it comes as soon as you see this individual, you fall in love. That this فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه. So he lets him know that the most endearing qualities of the Emir, which is his ability to be severe in both punishment and in war, and his overwhelming generosity. So these two endearing qualities that the Emir is known for, that these two qualities which normally are able to win over people, in addition to adversaries, that this is beyond his qualities. So those qualities that he has, those sort of weapons that he has against adversaries in terms of his batash, and his sakha, these things cannot work. Why? Because he says يستأثر البطل الكمي, that this love يستأثر. So it completely captivates the البطل الكمي, the most brave person who has the strongest armor, and he's able to do that with just what? بنظرة. ويحول بين فؤاده وعزائه. And the result of this simple glance is that intervenes, or it comes between fu'adihi wa azaihi. So even the most valiant man cannot defend himself against the power of love. With a simple glance from the beloved, it is enough to captivate him, overpower his heart, and strip him of his resilience. And so this is why the poet began his thought with Buqi al-Amir, making a dua to protect him from that fate. So in terms of the i'rab, we have the استأثر, which is فعل مضارع مرفوع. البطل مفعول به منصوب. الكمي صفة منصوب. بنظرة باء حرف الجر. نظرة اسم مجرور بالباء. ويحول واو حرف عطف. يحول فعل مضارع مرفوع. بين ظرف مكان. فؤاده فؤاد مضاف إليه مجرور. الهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر. واو حرف عطف. عزائه عزاء اسم معطوف على فؤاد. والهاء ضمير متصل. So after doing something that's very irregular, in a poem, when one is admiring, or when one is mentioning or praising an individual, after doing such a thing, after mentioning some qualities that are not necessarily endearing, where he basically says you are not able to do, you're helpless against this love, and that's not something that's very common when you're mentioning endearing qualities by saying, وقي الأمير هوى العيون فإنه ما لا يزول ببأسه وسخائه. So you're saying that these two endearing qualities that you have, they are not sufficient. And so this is supposed to be a poem where he's mentioning endearing qualities. So the endearing qualities include بأسه وسخاؤه. And you're essentially saying that these are not sufficient, they're not enough. and also saying that he's a batal, he's a very brave person, but despite this, he would be yasta'sir. So he would be captivated. He would be taken. He would be taken by the enemy, which is in this form here metaphorically the love. يستأثر البصر الكمي بنظرة ويحول بين فؤاده وعزائه. So he's in these two verses. He's essentially saying that their qualities, these enduring qualities he has, they're not sufficient. And so this is a very strange thing to mention in a poem that's used, that the intent is madh. The intent is to mention his endearing qualities and to praise him. And so this is why he follows up with this particular verse where he says, إني دعوتك للنوائب دعوة لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه. And so the word na'iba is an adversity or hardship, and a possible synonym includes masa'ib or musiba, which is a calamity or a disaster. Another word that we see is kufu. And so a kufu is an equal, or those who match in stature, ability, or merit. And so in this verse, he says, after mentioning that you become a prisoner, al-batal, you become a prisoner to this love, and with after only one simple glance, وَيَحُولُ بَيْنَ فُؤَادِهِ وَعَزَائِهِ. And then he mentions إِنِّي دَعَوْتُكَ لِلنَّوَائِبِ دَعْوَةً لَمْ يُدْعَ سَامِعُهَا إِلَى أَكْفَائِهِ. So in this verse here, he's back to praising him, where he says, I call upon you to support me against the trials of time. So all of the trials and tribulations um, that some of the errors of the Jahiliyyah attributed to time, the trials and tribulations attributed to time, and we know that that's not the case. So he says, I called upon you to support me against the trials and tribulation, but no matter how formidable, they fall short of being worthy of summoning you. So it's like I'm summoning you to deal with these trials and tribulations of life, and you are far greater than them. These trials and tribulations, um, these things that are caused by time, they're not your equal. You have no equal. There's no one who's able to challenge you or rival you in your greatness. إني دعوتك للنوائب دعوة لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه. So Sami' here is speaking in reference to the Amir. So لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه. وأكفائه, الها in this case here goes back to the Amir also. إني دعوتك للنوائب دعوة لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه. So in terms of the i'rab, we have إن is حرف التوكيد للنصب، والياء ضمير متصل في محل نصب. اسم إن، دعوتك فعل ماضي، والتاء ضمير متصل في محل رفع فاعل، والكاف ضمير متصل في محل نصب مفعول به. للنوائب لام حرف الجر، النوائب اسم مجرور باللام. دعوة مفعول به ثاني منصوب. لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه، لم حرف جزم. يدعى فعل مضارع مبني للمجهول مجزوم بلم. سامعها، سامع نائب فاعل مرفوع، والهاء ضمير متصل إلى حرف جر. أكفائه، أكفاء اسم مجرور بإلى، والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. So after declaring that إني دعوتك للنوائب دعوة لم يدع سامعها إلى أكفائه, after confirming that I called upon you to support me against the rivals of time, each of which, no matter how formidable these trials, fall short of being worthy of summoning you, as you have no challengers, you have no peers. And what was the result? After I called upon you, you didn't waste a second. فأتيت من فوق الزمان وتحته متسلسلا وأمامه وورائه. The fa there indicates that there was no time in between الدعوة and الاتيان. So أتى بسرعة. So there was no time. He came directly after. So after the da'wah, after the call was made, there was no time in between it. He didn't wait. He didn't think about it. He just came. فأتيت من فوق الزمان وتحته متسلسلا وأمامه وورائه. So the word that stands out here is the tasalsul, which is to clang, and he can be making reference to the clang of the armor and the weapons that the al-Batal, al-Amir, he was carrying, or he could be making reference to any type of transportation that was used to transport him, that was, clanging as a result of the armor and the weapons that the Batal al-Kami was wearing. فأتيت من فوق الزمان وتحته. So after this call was made to protect him against the calamities, how did you respond? Instantaneously, where you surrounded it. You surrounded it from فوق وتحت وأمام ووراء. فأتيت من فوق الزمان وتحته متسلسلا وأمامه وورائه. So he came from above the time, which is the cause of the calamities in his estimation. وتحته, how did he come? متسلسلا, meaning he came and you could hear him coming. He was coming very quickly, very rapidly, with the desire to defend from these calamities. متسلسلا وأمامه وورائه. So taking his attention away from the fact that love was able to stop him, he takes this time to emphatically state that everything doesn't stop him, only love. However, time and the calamities of time and the calamities of the world, he's able to deal with them. In fact, they're no match for him at all. So in terms of the i'rab, we have al-fa, which is حرف عطف. أتيت, أتى فعل ماضي. التاء ضمير متصل في محل رفع فاعل. من حرف الجر. فوق اسم مجرور بمن. الزمان مضاف إليه مجرور. وتحته واو حرف عطف تحت اسم معطوف على فوق. الهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. متسلسلا حال منصوب. وحرف عطف أمامه اسم معطوف على فوق. والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. واو حرف عطف ورائه وراء اسم معطوف على فوق أو تحت. والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. So continuing with this madah or praising of the Amir, he states, من للسيوف بأن تكون سميها في أصله وفرنده ووفائه. So this sort of rhetorical question is being asked. He states من السيوف بأن تكون سميها في أصله وفرنده ووفائه. So the first word that we see that stands out is sami, which is, it can be either something that's lofty or high, or in ismuhu ismuk. Men ismuhu ismuk. So two things that share the same name. And in this case here, this is what is meant in this verse. Men nisuyufi bi an takuna samiyaha. Possible synonyms include nid, which is the counterpart, or someone or something that shares similar qualities, but that's not what's meant here. What's meant here is the fact that it's what we're talking about is the name Suyuf and Saif ad-Dawla. So his name is, or he is referred to as Saif ad-Dawla, and he's making also reference to Saif. So من للسيوف بأن تكون سميها في أصله وفرنده ووفائه. So he's continuing this this praising of the Saif ad-Dawla by using these terms where he says Ferind is a sword in reference to its essence and decoration. And so this is done, as we said, because of the fact that he mentioned وقي الأمير هوى العيون, that he is supplicating and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him against هوى العيون, because he cannot ward it off with his strength or its magnanimity. So he's now mentioning the fact that the Saif ad-Dawla does have strength in the form of his sword. So he says, من السيوف بأن تكون سميها في أصله وفرنده ووفائه. So who guarantees for the swords? So we're talking about all of the swords, every single sword that was ever made, which share the name with Saif ad-Dawla. To be like him in essence, merit, deeds, and loyalty. So this is a rhetorical question. He's saying that there's no sword out there who can share the same name. So they should essentially change the name from Saif and call it something else. And the word that he mentioned here is ferind. And so it's not just a sword, it's also a sword that is decorated. And so he is essentially saying that the Saif ad-Dawla, the Amir al-Batal al-Kami, has very distinguishing qualities that are beautiful. So he does not only have the power and the ability to strike against his enemies like a sword does, but he's also beautiful. He has beautiful, very endearing qualities. And in this verse here, he is letting us know that this rhetorically that is not possible. من للسيوف بأن تكون سمية. Where is it possible for there to be a sword that has the same qualities, just irrespective of the fact that it has the same name, that it doesn't have the same qualities of a Saif ad-Dawla in the form of aslihi wa firindihi wa wafa'ihi. So in terms of his loyalty, the fierceness and the beauty of the sword, as well as its essence. So in terms of the i'rab, we have من للسيوف. من is اسم استفهام. للسيوف لام حرف الجر. السيوف اسم مجرور باللام. بأن باء حرف الجر زائد للتوكيد. أن حرف النصب. تكون فعل مضارع منصوب بأن. سميها خبر تكون منصوب، والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. في أصله وفرنده ووفائه. في حرف الجر. أصله أصل اسم مجرور بباء بفي. في والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. وفرنده حرف عطف. فرندي is اسم معطوف على أصله مجرور. الهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. ووفائه واو حرف عطف. وفاء اسم معطوف على أصله مجرور. والهاء ضمير متصل في محل جر بالإضافة. So in the final verse, he ends this poem with also praise, where he says, طبع الحديد فكان من أجناسه وعلي المتبوع من آبائه. And so in this particular verse here, he continues his praise. One of the first words that we find, or the only word that we find that is sort of that requires explanation, is the word طبع or طبعة. It means to be imprinted or molded. So in this word, it has two connotations. And the possible synonym includes khatama, which means to imprint without the element of creation. So al-hadid is metal, and ajnas is the plural for the word jins, which here means it's kind. So he's saying طبع الحديد فكان من أجناسه, that the hadid or the metal is created and molded with the elements. So you could have very strong, very pure type of metal, or you can have weak quality metal, depending upon the elements that it's made with. So he's saying that it's possible for hadid, and in this reference, he's talking about not only the sword, which is, we know that this is one of the things that early times were used, made from metal, and the fact that he mentioned it in previous verses, Saif and Farind. So letting us know that he's continuing the idea about al-ba's, the strength, and the batash, and his ability to conquer. So he's saying that طبع الحديد فكان من أجناسه, that the hadid, the metal, it's possible for the metal to be strong, or it's possible for it to be weak, depending upon what it's mixed with. However, علي مطموع من آبائه. So he's not only, in this final verse, he's taking the opportunity to not only praise Saif ad-Dawla, whose name is also Ali, but he's also praising his forefathers.